Most second language learners eventually hit a wall when facing a live conversation. Native speakers generate an unrelenting, high-velocity blur of sound that feels physically impossible to track. Phonetic measurements of this audio reveal a surprising reality. This chart shows the physical articulation speed of different languages in syllables per second. English ranks significantly lower than languages like Spanish or Japanese, which are spoken with a much higher physical velocity. This experience is a product of processing latency. The brain experiences a computational delay that makes the speaker's voice feel faster than it physically is. When you process a second language, your brain must segment the audio, look up definitions, and parse grammar manually. While your neural networks identify the first word, the speaker has already delivered 5 more, creating a cascade of failures. The perception of overwhelming speed occurs when the cognitive system freezes under a high computational load. Achieving fluency requires resolving this internal bottleneck. This computational freeze stems from a reliance on declarative memory. This is the explicit fact-checking network the brain uses for remembering historical dates or vocabulary lists. Processing audio through this system is biologically taxing. It requires the listener to consciously identify, interpret, and store every incoming word in a linear sequence. This conscious processing collapses when speakers use connected speech. Native speakers systematically blur word boundaries and erase acoustic landmarks, forcing the declarative system to work harder to reconstruct the distorted signals. Performance anxiety spikes this cognitive load even further. Stress compromises the auditory cortex, reducing the brain's ability to filter out background noise and focus on the target speaker. Building intensity. The auditory sensory buffer reaches capacity when the brain fails to clear the backlog. The acoustic stream continues uninterrupted, creating an incomprehensible blur. Human speech often outpaces the retrieval rate of explicit memory. Real-time conversational comprehension remains impossible as long as the listener relies on conscious translation. Native listeners utilize procedural memory to bypass this limitation. This is the fast, unconscious center that handles automatic motor skills and rule-governed sequences. This shortcut relies on rhythm, the fundamental principle that establishes order in the flow of speech. Much like the rhythmic organization of these waves, the brain uses rhythm to structure the movement of incoming sound. Scientists used EEG technology to discover that the human brain aligns its own internal oscillations to these external rhythms to process auditory signals. English follows a stress-foot rhythm of approximately 2 Hz. Low-frequency delta waves in the brain physically entrain to this pulse, peaking exactly when the speaker delivers a stress syllable. This physical alignment generates top-down temporal predictions. The native brain anticipates exactly when the next important word will arrive. The brain prioritizes these predictable high-energy peaks. This allows the listener to deprioritize and skip over the heavily distorted function words occurring in the valleys of the waveform. The native listener achieves efficiency through prediction. They leverage the stress-foot rhythm to anticipate upcoming information, allowing the brain to bypass the high-velocity stream of unnecessary data. Effort alone cannot force the declarative memory system to operate at conversational speeds. Directing more focus into conscious translation remains a biologically limited strategy. Successful language acquisition involves a migration of knowledge. Information must move from the slow, declarative system into the procedural circuits responsible for automaticity. Proficiency increases as the brain builds an independent meaning system for the second language. Neuroimaging shows activation patterns shifting into procedural circuits as rules and patterns become automatic. This shift allows the brain to deploy top-down temporal predictions again. The cognitive effort required to recognize auditory patterns drops significantly once the procedural system takes over. Training the brain for instant pattern recognition is the most effective route to fluency. Developing the neural frameworks for the procedural system allows the brain to parse sounds automatically. Achieving fluency reduces the brain's overall workload. The incomprehensible blur of sound eventually resolves into a predictable, anticipated rhythm.